And welcome back, and we're on to the 22nd of Feb. It is the higher plus 5 a day, and let's have a look at the first question. Right, 0.0282828 as a simplified fraction. Okay, what threw me slightly is I don't see this question ever with a 0 there, so that's the same question as we always do, but it's just slightly different, isn't it? Anyway, let's write this down. So the method here is I'm going to write down x is equal to 0, 2/8, and the 2/8 recurring, so I'm going to write it recurring like that. Now, a couple of teachers do write recurring in different ways. You might use a bar, you might use two different dots. It's fine, as long as it's clear and you know what you're doing. Then I'm going to keep multiplying by 10 until I repeat the 2/8 recurring in the same place. But actually I can guess what that's going to be, can't I? I can guess already that I'm going to move it 2 places. So if I multiply this by 100, well, that's going to be 2.8 and 2/8 recurring. So in other words, I've now got the 2/8 over the 2/8, which means I can take these away. So that's going to give me 99x. And 2.8 minus 0 is going to give me 2.8, which means my answer is x is going to be 2.8 over 99. However, I can't have a decimal in my fraction, so therefore I'm going to have to multiply top and bottom by 10. So that's going to give me 28 over 990, and that will simplify down. It does actually say in the question simplified fraction, so I must do this to 14 over 495. Obviously I use my calculator for that, but you can also just divide by 2 and keep dividing by numbers as long as you can. Right, next question. Quadratic inequality. Solve the inequality. And there's a definite technique to this, isn't there? So I'm going to factorise first. That's going to be 7 and minus 5, because I know the only real factors of 35 are 7 and 5. So it was always going to be, which means my critical values are 5 and minus 7. So if I draw my little graph, I know minus 7's here, and I know 5 is here, and I want all values that are greater than, which means I want all values to the left and to the right. So my answer is going to be x is less than minus 7, or x is greater than 5. Now, could you write and or here? You've got to be a bit careful. It's or, as in you can't have both these values together, but of course it's both of those sets of values. Next question. Angle AOB is 150, so in other words, I know this is 150. Work out the area of the segment. The segment is like the piece of orange at the end, if you like. My technique here is I'm going to work out the area of a sector, which is going to be not half, which is going to be 150 over 360 times the area of the circle, which is going to be pi. Well, what I should have said is note the radius. So the radius is 9. So pi times 9 squared. Now, let's just explain that. That is the area of a circle times by the fraction of the circle I need, which I can do using the angle. Then I'm going to take away the area of the triangle, which is the white triangle, which is going to be half AB sine C. Now, if you haven't done this yet, people tend to do this in 5th year, but you'll learn the formula AB sine C. So the area of the triangle is going to be 9 times sine of 150. Now, this could be a non-calculator question, and it could be that you have to answer in the exact form. So I'm going to give both answers. So 150 over 360 times 81 is going to give me 135 pi over 4 minus 0.5 times 9 times sine 150 is 81 over 4. And that is because sine 150 is 180 minus 30, so it's sine 30, which is a half. Again, if you haven't come across that yet, don't worry. I'm also going to give an exact a decimal value for this, so 135 pi divided by 4 minus 81 over 4 is going to give me 85.8. And that's going to be my answer to this one. Actually, let's put centimetres squared because it does give me a unit. Next question. Okay, right, so there's supposed to be quite a lot going on here. So it's obviously a histogram question, weights of some athletes, and what do we need to do? We work out an estimate of the median and the lower quartile. Okay, right. I was a bit confused because there was no numbers on the left-hand side, but of course that doesn't matter, does it? Because if I'm working out an estimate of the median, I just need the weight that's in the middle. All I need to know is how many people there are. I can invent my own frequency density. So if I'm inventing my own frequency density, I'm going to pick numbers that make it very easy for me. So if I call this 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then what I'm going to do is based on these values here, I can work out the areas of the individual boxes. If I know the areas, I can work out my version of what the total population will be, And all I need is the person that's in the middle. Let's do that. I'm going to start by labeling my boxes A to F, and it just means then I can set up a nice little table which is going to allow me to work out various differences. In order to fill out the table, I'm going to need the class width and the frequency density, which is basically the height, and that's going to allow me to work out the frequency, and then I'm also going to need at some stage the cumulative frequency. So I may as well do this in one go. So let's have a look through. So 40 to 50 is 10 across, and it is 4 squares up, so therefore it is 10 across, 4 squares up, so that's going to have a frequency of 40. B is also 10 squares across, except this one is going 11 squares up, and so that is going to have a frequency of 110. 30 times 12 is going to give me 360. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add all these things up. So that's going to give me 40 plus 110 plus 150 plus 600 plus 420 plus 360. There's no way of this not being a time-consuming question, which is going to give me 60 and 180. Then the cumulative frequencies, well, this starts at 0 and goes to 40, 40 to 150, 150 to 300, 300 to 900, 420 to 1320, and add on 360 and I get 1680, so that's correct. Good. Whew. Right, now to actually do the question. So the median person, in fact, what I'm going to do, because I don't really need the chart anymore, do I? So the median person is going to be 1680 divided by 2, which is going to be the 840th person. And the 840th person is going to lie between 300 and 900. In other words, they're going to be in here because that starts at 300 and ends at the 900th person. So what I want to do is work out the fraction the way through to get from the 300th person to the 840th person. So that's going to be 840 minus 300 divided by the size of the class itself, which is 600, times by the length of the class, which is 20. And then I'm going to add on the initial point of the class, which I can't remember what that is now. So D starts at 70. And so I get my calculator out, I do all of that, and that gives me a total of 88 kilograms. Now, quick sanity check. If you look at my graph, what you're trying to do is imagine where you would put the center point if it was like a seesaw where it's resting on either side. And it does look to be about somewhere there. Now, that's not really very mathematically to say, it looks to be about that. But the point is 88 doesn't seem unreasonable. 88 kilograms is my median answer. Now, very similar question, the lower quartile. So what I'm going to do here, and it allows me to actually show you two different calculations doing a very similar thing, doesn't it? Which is quite good. So 1680 divided by 4 is going to give me the 420th item. Or I could just say it's half of 840. So that would work as well. Then what I need to do is I need to work out where 420 is. Well, it is also between 300 and 900. So very similarly, I'm going to work out how far to go from the 300th person to the 420th, so 120 people along that class, divide by the total size of that class, multiplied by the class width of that class, and then add on the initial value. So again, a pretty similar calculation, but hopefully by the second one, that makes a bit more sense. So I'm putting my calculator, divide by 600 times by 20 and plus 70, and that's going to give me a final answer of 74 kilograms. Wow, a quite involved question. Now, if you do international GCSE, you don't need to know that. You'll learn that when you do A-level. If you do normal GCSE, it's one of these things whereby they can and they have asked you. So it's a good skill to understand. Probably not on the top of your list of things to know, but definitely a good skill to get. And that is it, question done. I seem to have changed pen halfway through, but that's absolutely fine. How did you find it? I think today's mix of questions were quite nice, as ever. Usual thing, do like, subscribe, and I'll see you for tomorrow's questions. Thanks all.